Welcome to Rob and Tony's Cinematic Adventure. I'm Rob Wilson.
And I am Tony DeQuano.
So, Tony, let's talk about a little movie that is kind of a twofold kind of thing. It, like you said, it always reminds you of fall. And then also it sort of acts as sort of an introduction into the spookier time of year.
It does.
With Halloween coming up.
It does not take place in the fall. It takes place in the summer.
Mm-hmm. It does. But yeah, it does have a very fall feel to it.
Yeah, it's very. And I actually first watched this movie in the fall, which might be part of my association, but it deals with, your adjacent kind of tropes of kind of spooky type movies, even though it's not a spooky movie.
No, it's more of kind of like a black comedy kind of thing.
It's definitely a black comedy. And it's truly a cult classic because it was a moderate success, but it was probably overshadowed by other movies from this actor at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But it has endured.
Yes, it
even saw when it celebrated its 30th anniversary recently. It was the sub headline was "How the Cult Comedy Horror Skewered Suburbia," right? Which is, I think, a very appropriate way of saying it.
Yeah, I think so. So yeah, that movie that we were talking about today is 1989's The Burbs.
The Burbs.
Starring Tom Hanks, Bruce Dern, Carrie Fisher.
Carrie Fisher. It was funny that when I first saw this movie, I don't think I picked up right away it was Carrie Fisher. Even though I saw her name in the credits.
Yep.
Because you're not used to her looking like just an average suburban woman.
See, I first saw this movie before I saw Star Wars.
Okay.
So I didn't really think twice about it being Carrie Fisher.
But also starring Corey Feldman.
Yes.
Brother Theodore is also in this movie.
Yes, he is.
And the repairman from Die Hard is in this movie.
Yes. Yes, he is.
What I want to know
Rick Ducommun
is... So last week we discussed how Collateral and Transporter exist in the same universe.
Mm-hmm.
Do the Burbs and Die Hard exist in the same universe?
I think they could, because so in Die Hard, Rick Ducommun's character is the electrical company guy.
Yes, exactly.
And in the Burbs, he's got that scene with the power lines where did he get all that equipment unless he works for the electric company?
What I want to know.
We are never told what he does for a living. We
don't get specification from what any of these characters really do for a living.
No.
I mean, Bruce Dern's character, you kind of suspect he's retired military. You get that.
You get that.
Right. But
yeah, everybody else, you don't really know what they do for a living. They never say it in the movie. But yeah, so Art could very well be, he very well could work for the electric company and be the same character as the actor plays in Die Hard.
Right. It could be. They seem to have kind of a similar type of persona as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Die Hard, he has a very quick role.
Yeah.
I mean, here, he is one of the leading, main. He's part of the main cast.
Yeah.
So you get to learn a lot about him. So, but I guess the one hang up in.
I never really thought that that never really occurred to me that he could be the same character as Die Hard, which makes total sense.
Right. Like his character would live in the suburbs of LA somewhere.
Because even during the scene with the power lines, and he's climbing up there, he's got all his gear on and everything. I was thinking to myself, he got to work for the electric company, because where else would he have gotten all that?
Where else? Yeah, you just don't
Where else would he have, the expertise to get up there and work on the power lines?
Well, I mean, that's the second part of it, right? Even though the outfit, it's not like military stuff where you just go to the surplus store and okay. No. Yeah, I have stuff that kind of makes me look like I'm in the military.
No, but that was like an electrician's uniform.
Yeah, no, it wasn't just like a. It's more than just like an orange vest.
Yeah.
That they have when they get in a bucket truck and work on the lines, right? Yeah. Yeah, he knows around. He knows his way around electricity.
I mean, from what happens in that scene, which we'll get to, I I mean, he could clearly use a little bit more practice. But he was the most qualified of the three to go up there. But yeah, so yeah, that's a very good point. I never put that together. That
no, it was just
it could be the same guy as Die Hard, and I like that theory. I really do.
and it's funny, like he's not an actor that you're gonna think a lot about, right?
No.
It's again, it goes like in Die Hard, he's briefly in one scene with like 2 lines within that scene. It's the only reason like it's almost memorable for that scene is because Johnson threatens to fire him for not getting off the power.
Yep.
It's like,
yep.
Even though he's just following the rules.
Yep. And I think until it's proven otherwise.
Yeah.
I think that
we're gonna run with it.
Yeah, we're gonna run with it.
What else was the end? I had this stuff up earlier today. He's Canadian. Oh, that's right. He was in Groundhog Day also.
Yes, he was.
And Spaceballs.
Yep.
Oh, and The Last Boy Scout. I didn't realize that either.
He's in The Last Boy Scout?
Yeah. He plays pool owner.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yes.
He is. Yeah.
So,
when they crash the car into the pool.
Yeah. This is back-to-back weeks. So last week we had the nice little connection of Transporter and Collateral.
Mm-hmm.
And we had Bruce McGill was in Collateral, and he's in Last Boy Scout.
Yep. And now we have another actor from The Last Boy Scout that is in this movie.
And before that, we did Shane Black, who is responsible for The Last Boy Scout.
Yes. I think something's telling us that we got to do The Last Boy Scout. Which, funny thing, we were talking about doing The Last Boy Scout for this episode before we changed it at the last minute to do the Burbs.
Maybe it's a sign.
Maybe.
It's a sign, all right. Going out of business. Anyway, but one of the common, it's funny though, looking at his filmography, he was also in Gremlins 2, The Last Batch. And I mentioned who directed this, but Joe Dante, which is kind of funny. Not funny, I guess, but it may not be a name now that I think a lot of people can immediately pull up. But he did a lot of these types of movies in the 80s. Because perhaps his most famous movie is also a kind of a October classic, and even some people now have attached it as a Christmas adjacent, is Gremlins.
Yeah.
He also did The Howling and Piranha and Inner Space.
Inner Space was amazing. I love that movie.
Small Soldiers. And he even directed on kind of that brief revival when they did The Twilight Zone. He did an episode of that.
Oh.
And this movie, I think, has heavy Twilight Zone kind of feel to it. Yes,
it does.
So it's funny. Twilight Zone has a lot of different types of episodes, right? And some are kind of dark comedy like this.
Mm-hmm.
Others have a lot of social things to say, but this is a dark comedy. It's also like a satire.
Yeah.
Kind of like some of those Twilight Zone episodes.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that. There's one episode in particular that I'm thinking about. So, yeah. But, yeah, terrific director of, the late 80s, early 90s. Very much kind of, I guess in some ways you could almost say, a well-produced B movie. Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, Inner Space is another really good one, like you said, though.
Yeah.
But I guess we should kick into it, right? So,
yeah, so... First off, so do you remember the first time you saw it?
That's right. I do remember the first time I saw it, actually. I was in high school. And I don't think I was really aware of it, which is interesting because, my brother was a big Tom Hanks fan. And, he was a big fan of Big, Splash, Turner and Hooch.
Mm-hmm.
By the time, I remember...
So he was a big fan of 80s Tom Hanks.
Yes, 80s Tom Hanks. and it's funny, one of the first Tom Hanks movies I really remember seeing is probably A League of Their Own. I remember seeing the poster for Joe versus the Volcano.
That was a fantastic movie. I love that movie.
I remember just being my little self and thinking it was funny that some person's fighting a volcano.
Yeah,
how I had it in my mind. Anyway. So yeah.
Hey, he had a brain cloud. He could do whatever he wanted.
That's right. But it was at a sleepover in October, like I said. My friend Justin, he was having a sleepover with a bunch of us, and like me, he's he's an October birthday, late October, and so a late October birthday, Halloween usually like factors in there somehow.
Yeah.
So we were having a sleepover at his parents' house, and we were going to watch a movie. And his parents were definitely very restricted on the types of movies he could watch, even then when he was in high school. And his mom found from like the library a VHS copy of some really poorly made like horror movie. And all I remember is from that was this frog mask on this guy kind of like claps down on his neck and suffocated him. And so she turned the movie off, and then they put in the Burbs instead because their family loved the Burbs.
Okay.
And then after that, I loved the Burbs. So this is probably after 2000, circa 2000, 2001, 2000, right in there.
Yeah.
Time frame.
All right. Nice.
So a little over 10. It was a little over 10 years at that point.
Okay. So, yeah. So the first time I saw it, I was like maybe 7, 8 years old, somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really remember much of it from seeing it as a kid. I mean, I remembered like the neighbor's house being all, weird and
spooky
and like no grass and all that stuff. But I didn't really remember much of the plot at all.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. It's a PG movie. But you don't get a lot of these types of PG movies anymore, right?
No, you don't.
Where it's not really aimed like at that age group.
Yeah,
it's definitely aimed kind of really more like probably 13 and up.
Yeah,
but it's rated PG.
Yeah,
which we're gonna hold this thought for later about PG ratings because I discovered some interesting things.
Okay, yeah, we'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah, so then back in about 2016, I was going through one of my phases of I'm going to go through Netflix and see movies that I've either never seen that I've always wanted to see, or maybe movies that I saw a long time ago that I just don't remember.
Yes.
And
totally.
So this was one of them. So I watched it, and it was completely different than I remembered because I didn't really remember a whole lot of it. I mean, I remember the very basic, I mean that there were creepy neighbors and all that, but as far as like the main plot points go, I didn't remember really any of it.
But I think that's the thing with this one is like it's one that's good to not necessarily know the plot points. You just kind of hear like it's Tom Hanks and they suspect that their neighbors are murderers.
Yeah.
So it's just enough of a plot line to get you into it.
Yeah.
And then they they
suspect that their neighbors aren't just murderers, but also Satanists. But yeah, so and then when I watched it yesterday, that was the first time I'd seen it since watching it in like 2016. So it's been almost 10 years since I've seen it, before yesterday. And even then in that time, I kind of forgot the ending. I kind of forgot the whole resolution of the movie.
The ending's insane.
Yeah, it is. It is. Because it's one of those, it's one of the few movies where, this sort of plot is very common in especially like 80s and early 90s movies and TV shows, like sitcoms. I
really wanted to kind of get into this.
Where it's, you have the creepy neighbors or the creepy person or whatever. That's part of the group. They're usually the new kid in town or whatever. And everybody has all these theories and everything of what this person or this group of people, this family, it actually is.
Right. And
typically at the end of the story, whether it's an episode of a TV show or a movie or something like that, it's proven that this family or this group or this person
are completely normal.
They're completely normal. It's just, whatever it is, they just keep to themselves.
It's just, misinterpretation.
Yeah. But this movie...
Spoiler alert.
This movie kind of reveals that they're almost exactly what everybody thought they were in the first place. I mean, the whole Satanist thing is is not
Not true. That's the one thing they kind of missed the mark on.
Yeah, but everything else, they're spoiler alert.
Satan is cool. Satan is our pal.
You're chanting.
But yeah,
yeah,
that's what happens, and and yeah. Anyway, so yeah, we will be talking about this movie.
Yes,
Beginning, middle, and end. So if you have not seen the Burbs and don't want to be spoiled, please you can pause and come back to us afterwards. Otherwise, you can continue listening.
Yep, you've been warned.
So the beginning, and I mean, this is where it's perfect, right? I think because it is channeling a lot of that, and by this time, it's the late '80s, so you had 30 years of suburban stuff portrayed on TV, and what's funny about it is like where this is filmed is it's called Colonial Street, which is on the back lot of like Universal Studios, and they've used it for so many different movies and TV shows, including even more. Recently it was Wisteria Lane and Desperate Housewives. But movies like Beethoven, Gremlins, right?
Yeah, I mean it's an excellent suburban look and feel to it.
Yeah, and then like you can do enough. They can get their production designers and set designers to change things within whatever particular way that the director kind of wants. Quantum Leap even used it for an episode.
Really?
So yes, I was reading about that.
You mean Scott Bakula stood on the same street as Tom Hanks?
Yes.
Nice.
I don't know if it was a reboot, but this is still the Beaver. The brief thing in the late 80s, I guess, was also used on this street. And so I was reading about like Joe Dante he's when he's conceptualizing the movie and the script, and before he was filming it, he was just kind of thinking about like most of this movie just takes place like one space, right? You don't really get off that cul-de-sac.
No, you don't.
You go into 3 houses in it, essentially, right? They go on some of the yards of the other houses and the roof of one.
Yep.
Right. But that's about it. You don't really leave that space.
Yep.
It could almost be done as a play.
It really could. It could.
You'd have to have a lot of special effects for a play.
Yes.
Someone can do it. I don't know. But I guess the only other thing is like the beginning of the movie is you get the shot of Earth, right? It zooms in. And, I think, what was it? Burn After Reading kind of uses that effect. And there's a lot of other movies. I think it was even some Twilight Zone episodes that kind of use that effect. Like it's studying these creatures down on Earth.
So, okay, so here's one strike against the whole theory of Art being the same guy in Die Hard. Because when it zooms in, it looks like it's zooming in the Midwest.
It is. So people have broken this down, and they've looked at the
I was wondering
river.
if somebody looked at it and did find out exactly where it is.
They've looked at the different rivers. It's like, obviously, you can see it's like the Midwest, but then like they were at this Mississippi, the Missouri, and they were looking at it. They determined that it looked like it was probably a suburb of Des Moines.
Okay. So somewhere in Iowa.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, is still possible. Art could have... Because Die Hard was in 88. This was in 89. Yeah. Die Hard could have originally been in L.A., working for a power company there.
Maybe
then moved to Iowa and got a job with a power company there.
Maybe the experience at Nakatomi was too much for him.
Maybe.
And so he's like, I got to get away from the big city and go somewhere in the Midwest where it's a little bit calmer.
Yep. Where I'm not going to live 2 houses down from murderers.
But yeah, and then it's just the typical suburban setup. Now this, like, what, it starts at like night, and Tom Hanks is walking out of his house. And
Now here, first up, so real quick, before I rewatched this in 2016,
okay,
for the longest time, I was thinking I had forgotten that Tom Hanks is the head of his household in this movie.
yes,
And even after watching it then, between that viewing and this one, I had kind of halfway forgotten that. Like, for some reason, I was thinking he was like the oldest son in a family. Because when I think 80s Tom Hanks, the first thing that comes to mind is big. And he's
I think
a big kid in that.
People, it's big.
He's a big kid in that. So when I think of an 80s Tom Hanks movie, unless I'm really familiar with the premise of the movie, like, say, Joe versus the Volcano. I love that movie. But, I always think of him first off as, upper teens, lower 20s, not necessarily a 30-something with a family of his own.
He's like mid-30s in this.
Yeah.
What Harrison
Married
Ford
to Carrie
thinks of
Fisher.
him being, I was thinking, like, what does Harrison Ford think about that?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Han can take him, though.
Oh, yeah. No, without a doubt. I was thinking, there's later a scene within this where I was a little surprised how much skin, I guess you could say, Carrie Fisher shows for what seems to be just a kind of a typical kind of nagging-ish suburbia housewife. But she's trying to make an impression, I guess, in the neighbors. So,
yeah, but
anyway.
really, I mean, she really doesn't show a whole lot of skin, though. She dresses like a suburban mom
for the most
part.
Yes,
yeah, but there is that scene or two where
she's not the neighbor across the street.
No,
she's not Miss Rumsfeld. As Corey Feldman,
Bonnie Rumsfeld.
Corey Feldman's well aware where her tan lines are,
yes,
or not.
Yeah, and mentions it right in front of her retired military husband. Right after he steps in dog crap.
Yeah. He tried to warn him about it.
Yeah. Or maybe it was right before he stepped in dog crap.
It was right before it.
Yeah.
Yes. He was still putting up his flag.
Right after
he's one of those. Yeah. He's one of those military guys. He has to have the flagpole in the front yard.
Yeah, because right after he stepped in, he went and complained to Walter.
But what I always think is, I think what's interesting is the beginning of the movie, right? We get down there and Tom Hanks is coming out of the house at night in this driveway, and they do a good job at first, like establishing kind of where some of the different people are going to be, right, and the different houses on the block. You get the understanding, like, it's the cul-de-sac, it's the end of the street. I like how when he looks across the street, he just sees Rumsfeld like at the top of this top bedroom, just with the little glow of his cigarette.
Yeah,
right. And at this point, in some ways, the way they kind of set it up, and first see it, you would almost think like he doesn't know much about his neighbor across the street, or they don't like each other. That turns out not to be the case. They know each other well.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get the glowing from under the basement.
Yeah, the
showing up
house.
kind of under the front porch of the neighbor's house, and then you hear the big kind of mechanical noise, and it quiets back down, and the rest of it's just the typical suburbia, quiet night.
Until Tom Hanks, Ray, steps across the property line. Then all of a sudden, the wind picks up.
That's right.
He steps into the neighbor's yard, and the wind picks up, and then he steps back into his, and it dies down.
That's the movie's way of trying to tell us that something may be amiss.
Yeah, something creepy is happening in his house.
Or is it? We did spoil that already, though.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. It's funny looking at this because, like, we grew up in the suburbs. It's hilarious because like in some ways it nails it better than other movies.
Yeah. Yep.
And then it's the next morning.
It's the next morning, and you get the paper boy riding his bike down the street, pissing everybody off.
Which at that
this was the 80s when
there was still
people
paper
when there's still paper boys and people could just get away with committing senseless violence toward children.
Yes.
Out in the middle of the street. It's this paper boy comes riding on the street. He's tossing his paper, hitting everybody. Tom Hanks walks out. He sort of reaches out so he can hand him the paper, and he throws it to him. He's got a cup of coffee in his hand. Hits him with the paper, so he sort of just throws the coffee at the kid.
Which is funny. Like late 80s Tom Hanks is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because like he plays up as being they established Tom Hanks as within movies being kind of an everyman kind of quickly. And he does have that in a lot of ways. And it's funny because like he eventually played Mr. Rogers, which is featured in this movie.
Yes, it is.
He can play Jimmy Stewart easily. If they want to do a Jimmy Stewart biopic, right? But it's funny. Like, there's always been that thing within Tom Hanks. You don't get it anymore with his movies. But for a while, like, he's just at that edge of doing something like throwing his coffee at a paper boy.
Yeah.
So.
Now, keep in mind, this was only like 5 years before he was Woody.
Gump. Woody. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yep.
And he was a child's best friend.
That's true. There was a whole saga about it.
Yep.
And then, we, excuse me. He sees one of his neighbors. It's at the end of the cul-de-sac. He's an older gentleman. He's bringing out his little dog and to go to the bathroom. And he's found his name is Walter. Morning, Walter, right? And Walter goes back to his house. And Walter, the little dog, runs over to across the street from, Tom Hanks's house and takes a crap in the yard and runs back.
And Walter, by the way, wears a very obvious toupee.
A very obvious toupee, which will be a very obvious plot point.
Yeah. About the only person in history that could pull off a toupee was Sean Connery.
Yes. I think it's the other thing about this movie. Like, all these things that are... I don't think I'd go as far as to call even like Chekhov's gun. But there's a lot of other things that you kind of think, is that going to be a plot point later in the movie?
Mm-hmm.
And they end up being a plot point. Like the toupee. And notes. And a whole heap of other things. So it ends up, as we said earlier, the yard where the dog craps is Mark Rumsfeld's house. We see also on this block, there's this kind of a spacey teenager. Looks like he's probably like a junior and senior in high school. Maybe just graduated high school, right? Ricky, played by 80s heartthrob Corey Feldman.
Mm-hmm.
And we see anyone else from the block yet? Obviously we don't see the neighbors.
So. No.
Yeah.
Sorry, it was 6 years before he was Woody. Toy Story was 95. So it was 5 years before he was Forrest Gump. 6 years before he was Woody.
Okay, that's right. Because the new Forrest Gump was 94. Because it won the Oscar for 94.
Yeah.
Right. And so at this point, basically, Tom Hanks, or he's back, or I should say, Ray. He is
Ray Peterson.
Ray Peterson. Married to Carol Peterson, right? Played by Carrie Fisher.
Mm-hmm.
They have one son. We don't really see a lot in this movie. Dave.
Yeah.
Anyway.
He's only in a few scenes.
Yeah. He's brought up at various points, but he's not a major factor in this movie. So,
in fact, I mean, the movie would have been pretty much exactly the same if he wasn't in it. He's that minor of a character.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen. His dad throws coffee at the paperboy. I mean, it makes you wonder what their relationship might be like.
Yeah.
Anyhow. So, yeah, he's back in the house. He's still kind of watching everything. What we don't know yet is that he is on vacation. He is taking like a week off of work.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And, you know, like we said earlier, like we associate this movie with Halloween or October, the fall, but the movie takes place in the summer. So, you know, seeing kids, you know, during the morning, day hours like that, you don't think anything of it. So, but you can also just assume that it's a Saturday or Sunday morning also. But what we don't, he's in his bathrobe and he's on vacation, right? And he starts kind of talking to his wife about watching everything because he sees, excuse me, Mark after he steps in the dog crap, runs down to the end of the block and starts kind of yelling at Walter.
Yeah.
Right. And, and Ray finds it amusing and he ends up talking to Princess Leia about it. Because, she might have some sway in terms of with the homeowners association.
Yeah. I mean, she's a princess after all.
Right. And anyway, so, and he starts talking about what he saw and heard last night with the neighbors and the sound and the glowing light, all of that.
Which, as loud as that was, I'm surprised that Princess Leia didn't wake up.
Right,
with it being right next door.
You got the sense that was like
because it was loud.
It was loud, and he kind of had the sense that it wasn't like 3:00 in the morning. That might be just about the time where you just you're just starting to go to bed, maybe, or you just sleep like an hour.
Yeah,
where something like that might actually.
Yeah, maybe 11:30, something like that.
Anyway, I forgot. I did find this line amusing when after Mark started running down and he's yelling. He's on Walter's property. He's like, "I'm gonna find your dog. I'm gonna steal its ass shut."
Yes.
And then the dog starts barking at him. It's a little toy dog too, which I think makes it even funnier because they're always the biggest assholes of dogs.
Yeah, this is a little tiny dog.
But yeah, so the two of them, they start talking just like any husband and wife might talk, and he's like, what do we do about the neighbors, right?
The Klopeks.
Yeah. And she's like in her robe too, right? So again, it feels like it could be just easily a Saturday or Sunday morning. Very suburban. Ray's just like, the talk. He's like, Walter's dog took a dump on Rumsfeld's lawn again. It's like, it's everyone's just always watching her. I mean, it's again, it's so suburban in so many ways. Like my parents weren't really like this. There's always a couple people on any block or any little cul-de-sac There's always a few people in any neighborhood like this in suburbs that are watching everything that happens.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that happened again.
Yep. Every neighborhood has one.
Right? Now they've moved to the kitchen and like she's made some breakfast.
And if your neighborhood doesn't have one, then it's probably you.
Yeah, probably is you. Right? And now they're in the kitchen, and their kitchen's like in the back of the house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they have when they're there, and it kind of looks out on a little deck, and they can from there is like a little kind of like the kitchen is kind of like one of those little like not quite a sunroom, right? It's kind of like a large bay window type. That's kind of like a small seating area, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you can kind of look out and you can kind of see towards the side of the yard in the back, right? And he's looking back there again, and he's like, "What's their name again?" The Klobecks. And we kind of discover that they, the new neighbors have lived there about a month.
Yeah, they're recent additions to the street, to the cul-de-sac.
So what's interesting about this? We'll get into this later, right? And there are some good points that get brought up later about this. Is that not noticing necessarily when they moved in, right? Mm-hmm. Like, did these sounds from under the basement just start in the last couple of days?
Yeah,
or was it more recent? Who knows? And like, did you ever see the house go up for sale?
Did you ever see a moving truck come out for the old family
people
that lived there?
Old people, which are your neighbors, and we discovered it was an older family. Like, you ever know that they were going to move, or maybe they were in poor health, and maybe their kids are going to sell the house, right? As invested as some of these people are on this block, they don't have a lot of answers for this.
No.
Right, and he's really just like I love how he keeps going over that name. It's like, is it Slavic?
Yeah, the Slavic. But he and Carrie Fisher, Carol, Princess Leia, are having they're having a discussion. It's not really an argument, but they're having gets slightly heated at points.
Yes.
Where she's suggesting that, they go to the lake, and he's like, no, I'm on vacation. I just want to stay here and relax. I don't want to go anywhere because that requires work. I'm on a vacation for the week from work. I want to just sit at home and relax, not do anything.
That's right. And he makes a comment also about like he's looking like they let the lawn go to hell because it's all dead and burned out, right? Think about, I'm gonna have some beer, right?
Mm-hmm.
She kind of like now she's back in her paper. Yeah, he does both, and he does both.
Mm-hmm.
He will do both.
Yep.
And he's like, but she uses the line like, "No, what's?" And she was like, "No, you're just gonna sit around here and do nothing, and it's gonna make you crazy." And it does make you think like, okay, yeah, no, he's gonna go crazy at the end, and he does kind of go crazy
a little bit,
but he's right to go crazy as we find out.
Yep. Anyway, then we get Art.
Yep.
We get Rick Ducommun sort of sneaking through the bushes with a rifle.
That's right.
Walking through their backyard.
And they have a dog too. Kind of like a Shaggy type dog.
Mm-hmm.
And he's in the back.
And it's not clear why Art has a rifle,
but he has a rifle.
Is walking through the bushes, and he's got like a branch Like, he's wearing a branch to disguise himself in the bushes.
But it's not very good because the dog spots him and starts barking at him.
Yeah.
The dog's name is Vince, by the way.
Yeah. And then we see why he's got the gun. And there is a crow.
So, how long has he spotted this crow being on the fence here?
I don't know.
And was the crow there long enough for him to go ahead and decide to dress as a bush?
Yeah. I don't know. But this crow, apparently it's been a nuisance for a long time, at least to Art.
Oh, or it's last name is Weingarten, by the way.
Yes, Art Weingarten.
So he's definitely
Art Weingartner.
German.
And yeah, so he shoots at the crow, misses it,
and blows off the head. They have one of those like ceramic owls that you use to scare off like other. Not scaring off a crow.
So blows off the head of the ceramic owl, and we never see the crow again.
No.
The crow flies off. We never see it again. So is it really that much of a nuisance that he's got to try to shoot it?
No. I'm going to say this, though. This is good commitment to continuity. Anytime I'm in the backyard again, that owl's head is blown off.
Yep.
So, and then, of course, this makes a lot of noise.
Mm-hmm.
So they get out of the little, new. Carol's like, Ray,
like,
Art's got a gun.
Yeah, Art's got a gun.
Like, it's like it's a first time occurrence, but it's not a shocker.
Yeah. So Ray goes out and talks to Art, brings him inside, and Art eats all their food. He sits down and joins them for breakfast and just keeps on eating. Typical, 80s obnoxious neighbor that,
right. But that's the thing. I remember that's what it is. So he talks about, it's funny, like you always wonder, like, is Art like Barry? What's his deal? Because he's doing things at all hours.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like Ray a bit, but like,
yeah,
you don't see his wife, and you see everyone. You see Rumsfeld's wife, and
you see Art's wife at the end.
You do, yes. You even see Ricky's girlfriend before you see Art's wife.
Yeah.
Anyway, he does mention there's a bird feeder that I think she's protective of.
Mm-hmm. So that's what like the crow, I guess, is trying to take over the bird feeder.
Yes, but Carol mentioned something here that I think sparks him, where she just kind of says it throwaways, like, I don't remember seeing crows around here before, right?
Mm-hmm,
which it goes into that wind aspect of the thing. It's like it's crows tend to be not a good omen.
Yeah.
That's right. That's what he says. It's like, yeah, I figured I'd break out the elephant gun and pick a couple off while she's up visiting her mother.
Yeah.
And then, so now they're looking like Carol's finished making breakfast, and Ray doesn't want to eat, and Art's more than happy to eat. As the co-pics will later say, that's the fat one.
Yeah.
It's like in The Hangover. It's funny because he's fat. And Art's just curious. Like, he's like, oh, that's what it is. Ray's like, well, why didn't you go up like this, with her to see her like her mother? He's like, spend a week watching the two of them argue. It's like, and he just says like, yeah, I'm just be like, enjoy my week himself, right? And again, it begs the question because you see him a lot. What job does he have?
Yeah. Yeah. Because, I mean, you see him during the day, too.
That's right.
I mean, we know why Ray is out during the day because he's off work for the
week. And again, if he's a lineman, he could work at a number of different shifts at different times.
Yeah.
Because electricity needs to be tended to 24 hours a day.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
So, right. So they start talking, and I guess Art doesn't know yet that, Ray took the week off, right? It's like, Art's like, oh, great. Are you going somewhere? Carol's like, no. And finally, they kind of hear the noise coming in from next door, right? Art's just like, well, good luck all week with that, your strange neighbors. So, I guess it has been kind of a point of discussion around the block.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, these new people are weird. And it's interesting because, like, the rest of the block looks like houses that were probably built, like, the late 70s, early 80s.
Yep.
And then they have that house, which looks like it's 100 years old. That's been there for a long time.
It doesn't quite look like 100 years old. It's just not nearly as, I mean, it looks like it's about the same age as the others. It's just not nearly, kept up as much. It's not, the paint's peeling and it's, the wood's rotting and all that.
True.
Which makes you wonder, was it like that before the Klopex moved in? Was the older couple that lived there before, was the house like that then?
That's a good question. So, but they continue to talk, and
it could be either way because
old
an older couple that maybe they weren't able to get out and do the work on the house,
right?
Or maybe they couldn't afford to have a younger person come out and do it, pay somebody to do it,
and if their family's not close to help them, that's all reasonable. So they start discussing them more, right? And Art just says, like, nobody on the block has talked with them. Right? Of course, Ray lives next door. He would be one of the immediate people.
Yeah.
Talk. Somehow Walter has talked with them, as we find out later. Not sure how that happens.
Yeah.
Right. And then, like, this is the part, like, I kind of wonder, it's like, I guess he's talking about the Klopaceks, right? And it's like the last house burned to the ground. Like, how did he find that out? If no one's talking with them?
Yeah.
Like, I guess but if they've talked with people that were part of the real estate that helped sell it, like, that could come out that way.
It could.
Maybe. I don't know.
But I don't know. Yeah, so Ray and Art are talking about the Klopex and how creepy they are, and Art has theories.
Right. Because he says, like, he's been watching it. Again, what does he do?
Mm-hmm.
It's just, no one's got in, no one comes out, there's no deliveries, there's nothing. It's like no visitors, and obviously the other part, it's like all the strange noises. It's like he talks about no one knows how many there are. There are 3. We'll discover that. But again, it's like they are towards the end of the block. Like that would be the place to kind of go unnoticed a bit.
Yeah. I mean, they're not like right in the middle of the cul-de-sac. Walter's in the middle of the cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
But
there's if you live towards the front of the neighborhood, you might see a car drive by, but you're not necessarily thinking about, oh, that's the person that lives at the very end of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And then that's like one of the few times that we hear from the son, Dave.
Yes.
I love this scene because like Art's really into eating the breakfast that Carol made.
Mm-hmm.
And he's really getting into this conversation with Dave now. Dave's like, there's 3 of them. They only come out at night. And then like, you get to the point, like this is where you get like all the strange theories. Like it's like all rumors, right? Rumors.
Yeah.
Like Ricky says they're nocturnal feeders. And then, like, this part, but here's the thing: like, there's truth to all of it. So the other line, it's like, yeah, I was up on the roof looking at the full moon with my telescope. I saw them in the backyard. Carol, like his mom's just like, what are they doing, honey? It's like, why are you spying on the neighbor's son? It's like they were digging.
They were digging in the backyard.
And then, so I like how, and then like Art's like, oh yeah, that's weird. They're digging like a bunch of ghouls and all that, right? So
yeah, the ghouls, grave robbers.
So and they basically, that's kind of the end of it. They Art kind of goes back home, and Ray gives his wife a kiss, and then he tells Art he's going to start his vacation.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Let's see. So next thing we get is kind of again the typical suburban thing, the comparing of the lawns.
Yes.
Rumsfeld's looking
Grass
at it.
is
And
always greener.
Ricky's painting a house, right? And Rumsfeld's out, and he's looking at his yard, and you can tell he's a military guy, so he's gonna be someone that's gonna try to take pride in something.
Yeah.
Right? He looks out Walter's yard, and he sees how much greener it is.
Mm-hmm.
He's just like, it's because he makes his dog crap in my yard. Bruce Dern is like great in this.
Yes, he is.
So I don't think I really knew much of Bruce Dern at one point, but before and then I discovered he was Laura Dern's dad, and then he was big like in the 70s and the early 80s, and then he kind of dropped off, and he was in this, and then he was in almost nothing for a long time, and then Alexander Payne cast in Nebraska. I think he got an Oscar nomination, and then he was in The Hateful Eight.
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't done much sense, but
and then he was in then he was in a couple of scenes of
that's right. He was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, became a Tarantino favorite, but he's great in this. Perfect role for him. He finds the right role for it, right? So anyway, but then the other thing he starts talking about, right? He looks over at the Klopchek's yard. He's like that stuff's contagious. He's bitching about them, like effing up his yard, right?
Yeah. So it's the Klopek's yard. They're the Klopek's house, and then right next door to them is Ray. Right next door to Ray is Art. Across the street from Ray is Mark,
Rumsfeld's.
The Rumsfelds.
Oh yeah, the Rumsfelds. Yeah,
the Rumsfeld, and then next door to them is Ricky, the Butler family.
It's hard for me not to watch this and think about former Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld.
Yeah,
under George Bush.
Yeah, same here.
because he was a war hawk. Anyway, this was what 11 years before he was elected, 12 years before he became president. So,
yeah,
it's been a lot longer since. Anyway, don't want to feel old, so we'll move on from that. So, they're talking, like Ray's garage door opens across the street. Rumsfeld hears it, and like, I guess this is where you can kind of see, like, they live across the street, but they haven't talked that much. They just kind of know each other's names. But they're about to become very close over this next week.
Yeah. Very close.
Right. Because he sees him, and he's talking to his wife. He's like, "Oh yeah, that's he came out last night in his robe when they were making all that racket." It's like he didn't do anything about it though, right? Which is kind of a good point, because you kind of see this as again, he's a military guy, so he's gonna be one that's gonna be more on the offensive than the defensive, right? Yeah. Like, if he was a next door neighbor, he would say something about it, even though technically he lives across the street. He could just walk across the street and knock on the door and say, "Hey, knock this shit off."
Yeah.
Or like, "Hey, people across the street, they're making racket at all hours of the night. And there's something glowing. There's something glowing from their basement.
Glowing from their basement.
It does not look like their furnace."
No. But we found out later that it is their furnace. But
well, it's a
kind of
heavily modified furnace. Yeah. To burn a lot hotter.
Yeah.
That's got to be a bill.
Mm-hmm. But we'll get to that.
So he's going around his basement. Art's back over, and it's the typical garage thing. Like, want to see the tools that Carol's dad got me?
The tools that Carol's dad got me?
He just is like, you're going to build something? Maybe.
Yeah, so he pulls out the toolbox and opens it up, and as he's trying to pull out the tools, then Art just stops paying attention to him. And he focuses on the Klopek's house.
They hear the door open. Right? Mm-hmm. He's like, "Ray, come here. Not subtle at all.
Yeah.
There's this weird looking dude that's like early 20s, maybe.
Yep. Hans Klopek, played by Courtney Gaines.
He's got kind of like reddish hair. He's got like a scraggly beard. What a great look. He's got suspenders on. And everyone in the block is looking. Right? The Rumsfelds, even like, or at the end of the block, Ricky, everyone's looking at it. Carol's not looking at it, I guess, and it's the son, but and they're all just kind of transfixed, and like he's just going out to check on the mail real quick, right? He's just looking around. Now, like, does he do this every day? And they've all completely missed it? I don't know. It's possible. They keep, Art tries, Art keeps like, he's your next door neighbor. He's like, you should say hi.
Yeah.
I love how, like, it's funny. We'll get into this too. Like, some of this is almost like they reduce everyone to still being like they're 12 years old.
Yeah. So you're just waiting for I dare you. No, I double dare you. I triple dog dare you.
I loved what Robs was like, "Oh, yeah, honey, one of the Huns came out of the cave." And it's like, they're looking and like, okay. And then he goes back in. And then he's like, "You blew it, chicken." Again, it's like, it goes back and forth on that. And But guess what? It's not going to sell it. Like, you get called a chicken, what do you do? It's like, way back on Back to the Future episode, right? It's like, no one calls me yellow.
Exactly.
No one calls me chicken. Doesn't matter if it's Michael J. Fox or Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
You just go up to that door. But he takes Art with him.
Yes, he takes Art with him.
Great, what you need to do, right? So you're dealing me to do this, but guess what? You need to prove that you're brave also, bitch.
Yeah. So they step up onto the front porch, and Art's foot breaks through it.
That's right. Then they have like this giant knocker.
Yeah.
Right.
Right in the middle of the door.
And they look up, and they before they knock it, right? They look at this. They have a porch light, and the house number is right below it. The house number is
669. No, the horse number is 669.
That's right.
So he goes and hits the knocker, and it flips the 6 or the 9 down, so it turns into a 6. So it turns into 666. And then there's no answer, so he knocks it again, and the whole address plate up there falls off, and it hits the sconce on the side of the, hits the light and knocks the whole light fixture off the wall.
And there's a nest of like yellow jackets or hornets.
Yeah, I think they're just like honeybees. Actually,
okay.
Look like it's just bees. So,
but anyway,
but they're living inside the wall there,
and it's still a swarm of them.
Yeah. So the bees swarm, and Ray and Art go running into the street. Meanwhile, Mark decides he wants to be helpful, so he pulls out the garden hose.
Yeah, he's helping. He's
like, "Hey, come over here! Come over here! Get the water. I'm going to spray him off of you."
Ricky's laughing his ass off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because he's 17. He's going to laugh his ass off at it. Right? They're taking it off, and then they kind of spray him off, and then finally they're there, and like there's one left, and like Art's mouth just crawls out, and
he opens his mouth, he's got it on his tongue, and it just flies off. I'm surprised he didn't get stung on his tongue.
Yeah, no, I mean, like that would be okay. Did I ever tell you about? I don't know if I told you about this. So, a few years ago, my oldest got stung in the ass, right? Mm-hmm. Because we were
that happened to my sister once.
We
sat on a bee.
We were out, and we were sitting down. We got like these snow cones. They also had like, ice cream. So there are a bunch of bees around, right? And I guess it kind of crawled up his shorts, right? And then, or he sat on it, whatever it was, right? And we were driving home, and he was talking about how his butt hurt. We're like, maybe it's just because we've been sitting a while, whatever, and right? We eat dinner, and then it's bath time. He's still talking about his butt hurts. And so driving off, and I decided to, take down the town. There's a stinger right in his butt. Okay. I'm like, oh, yeah, no, that's why your butt hurts. And so I ended up looking this up, and there's this guy that decided to devise his own criteria of how to judge it. He voluntarily stung himself to find out where it hurt the most to get stung.
Okay. And the butt was the most?
No, the butt wasn't, because it's fleshy, right?
Yeah.
He included the testicles, the shaft, and like fingers, hands. The two he concluded were like on the tongue and in the nostril.
So props to this guy, because he took more than just one for the team. He sacrificed his body for the rest of us.
Yeah.
To determine where it hurts the most to get stung.
But the funny thing is, he said about like the nostril is that like a lot of times, like once you get something that's like irritating up in your nose, you just can't help but keep sneezing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it kept sneezing, but then like it just, because of the stinger being in there, like it just kept shooting off all those pain receptors.
Yeah.
Is why, like he was saying, like, it was just like really intense.
Yeah.
In the nose.
I mean,
thankfully,
like,
I think.
Have you ever had a zit like right on the inside of your nostril?
Yeah, right.
I mean, that hurts.
It's annoying.
It's annoying and it hurts. So I could imagine having a stinger in there. You know?
Like, doesn't matter if it's a honeybee, yellow jacket, a wasp, or a hornet, whatever it would be. Like,
well, the only one of those the stinger would actually stay in there would be a honeybee.
So,
yellow jackets, hornets, and wasps, they keep their stingers.
Is that so? Interesting. Mm-hmm. That's right. I know. I did read that because the honeybees, they basically rip their asses out, which is why they die. Yep.
This is why a honeybee can sting once and then they die.
Anyway. All right, so
so they get the bees, rinsed off of them, sprayed off of them, and then for most of the rest of the movie, Art's got Band-Aids all over his face.
Yes, because he did. I mean, he's by himself. He's the one. He bandaged himself all over.
Yep. So what's interesting is Art got stung all over the place, but Ray didn't. Or at least Ray didn't put Band-Aids on. If he did get stung.
Princess Leia's like, you gotta man up.
Mm-hmm. Princess Leia is like, I was with Han Solo before you. I left Han Solo for Tom Hanks, all right? You gotta man up.
You think after he was, encased in carbonite, he wanted some stuff? Mm-hmm. No.
I mean, he came out of that thing with hibernation sickness. He was temporarily blind.
Yeah.
But did he complain about it? No. Did he wear a blindfold? No.
No. He still tried to bargain with Jabba.
Mm-hmm.
And he still fought with Jabba.
And he still went toe-to-toe, kind of, with Boba Fett.
Hey, granted, he still had some hibernation sickness. Which was Boba's fault.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't Boba's fault. It was Darth Vader's fault. Because he's the one that froze him.
Yeah. But Boba realized that, anyway.
Which that had to have been the easiest bounty of Boba's career.
Yes.
Because he just followed Han to Cloud City. Darth Vader captured him.
Yeah.
Darth Vader froze him in carbonite. Boba just picked him up and took him to Jabba.
Jabba, like, here you go. A nice decoration. Which ended up completely screwing Jabba over in the end.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep, because of Luke's overcomplicated plan. But we talked about all that before. Listen to our Return of the Jedi episode, folks.
Yes. Anyway, so Ricky's enjoyed all this. Now he comes over and says, my basketball went over there last week. But it wasn't bees. They never go into this. He's like, it was a foaming squirrel.
Yeah.
So I think that's like a rabbit.
A rabbit squirrel, yeah.
Like, should the neighborhood be concerned for their pets?
I know, right?
You got the old Yeller, all their pets.
Oh, yeah.
But now they're all staring like dead-eyed, like at the house, right? And then they all kind of walk away, and finally you see a little hand reach across the curtain at the top.
Mm-hmm.
As they walk away, and it closes, right? Which is a good point to remind you. If you do like us on any social media, we will mention you in the next episode. And also with that, I am going to go to the bathroom.
Well, if you comment on us on social media, because we don't really know who is the most likely to like.
Sorry.
The way that it works out, it's kind of hard to determine who
that's
it
what
is
I meant.
that likes. But
if you tag us on social media,
if you tag us or comment on us, or
if you tag
give
us
a good review,
comment,
or
give us a good review, like us, not like us, like you were saying, but yeah, leave a comment, and we will shout you out on social media.
Yep.
Or in our next episode. So now we got cut to the night. We got Ray. He's taking out the dog, Vince, and it's the typical evening. And then he hears a "Hey, you with a dog." This is Art Paint Art, right?
Yep.
He's there, and he's there with Ricky. Like, again, you always wonder about Ricky. Like, again, he seems like he's 17, 18 years old, and
not quite 18. He's maybe 16, 17.
Yeah, 16, 17. Again, he's probably going into his senior year of high school.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you see him drinking beer. You never see his parents. You don't know if he has any siblings. Right? But he works. Like, he's doing stuff to make money. He's helping to paint and probably doing some yard work here or there.
Yep.
So... I love this part where it's like Ricky looks up, he's like, green sky.
Yeah, green skies.
Green sky at morning. Right? He's like, what is it? He says, neighbor, take warning.
And then everybody's like, and what about green sky at night? Neighbor, take flight.
Like, there's so much about this kid that I want to know about. He's kind of quick with things. He's very curious.
Mm-hmm. His favorite thing to do is watch the neighbors. Sit on his porch and just watch the show.
Yes. Well, that's the hilarious thing about that too. That's actually a great point. Great point. It's like Neighbors themselves like a show. I'm glad you brought this up because I forgot it. I was thinking about this, watching it again. It's almost kind of like a Rear Window in a way.
Yeah.
Except it's like all the neighbors are kind of watching each other for different things.
Yeah.
And like Rear Window is something where you have the main character, Jimmy Stewart. He believes that his neighbor is murdered his wife, and then the whole movie they're trying to tell him that he's incorrect. And in the end, he was right. His neighbor murdered his wife.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes. Meanwhile, we're sort of like, yeah.
Spoiler alert for Rear Window, by the way.
That movie is, 70 years old?
Yeah.
Point. Got remade into a Shia LaBeouf movie.
Yeah.
Called Disturbia. Christopher Reeve also played in a TV remake of Rear Window.
Which interesting thing about Disturbia. So Sarah Romer, who plays the girl in that movie,
yeah,
she and I were born on the exact same day.
Oh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm. That
movie also has one of my other favorite character actors, David Morse.
Yeah, he's great.
He's the bad guy. He dies. Anyway. So I love how they're just talking. I like it. There's always one of those kids in the neighborhood that adults, like a high school that wants to talk to the adults about all
Yeah.
these other things. And that's Ricky.
Yep.
He's like, "Do you ever see that movie, The Sentinel?"
Yeah.
It's like the old man whose apartment was the gateway to hell. And he's like, that could make sense. Their last house burned down. Maybe somebody left the gate open. Corey Feldman's great in this.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he is.
He's one of those. It's almost easy in some ways to take some of those characters from the that time period for granted, but when you look back at it, he's really good.
Yeah,
and it's funny because, like,
I mean, Corey Feldman was always solid in like everything.
He's always solid, but it's really interesting watching him in this because, like, some of those other ones, he's interacting with basically like actors or characters his age, and here he is, just like he's the one. Well, I guess Dave also, but every time you see him, he's acting with like adults.
Yeah,
people that could be like his dad.
Yeah, I mean, you get the feeling that there aren't too many kids in the neighborhood.
Yes, at least not at this end, which is strange because, like, the cul-de-sac is a great place to have kids because we only have the one way, nice and blocked off.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, and again, like, they look around and like they can see, like, oh yeah, they're moving around again, right? And then Art has his story of what can't remember the name of the town. Anyway. And he starts talking about, like, so obviously, like, Art has probably lived here in this town. You know, probably grew up in it, right? So he probably lived in another part where they had like the original original suburbs.
Yeah, so he very well may have grew up in this town and then moved out to LA for a little bit and then moved back.
Yeah. There we go. Yes. Right? And like, Tom Hanks remembers the story. Or, excuse me. Ray remembers it. Oh, there it is. Yeah. Hinkley Hills.
Yeah. Hinkley Hills.
Which is interesting because in the 80s there was a well-known would-be assassin with the last name Hinkley.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he was talking about how he was probably a teenager. And then there was a soda fountain. Right? And now it's the library. Then he was talking about how the guy that ran it was a rotund guy named Skip.
Yeah, a guy named Skip.
Right? And he had a wife, a couple of kids, and everyone knew him.
Everybody knew him, and he was always, everybody's favorite person. They go to the soda fountain.
At that time,
he'd scoop him ice cream. He'd give him, all the stuff. He was,
free sprinkles, right? Maybe a little larger scoop, right? Extra whipped cream, that type of thing. And it's just like, yeah, he's probably about 40 or so, and keeps telling the story. And all of a sudden, he talks about how the neighbors start noticing a smell from his house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they finally complained about it. And the cop showed up, and then apparently he gets scared and sets fire to the house and blows his brains out. Right?
Yeah. So then the fire department comes and they go into the house and they find the bodies of Ray's family.
Sounds like
not Ray's family. The bodies of Skip's family.
Yeah. Tom Hanks is not killing his family in this movie. He will kill people in Road to Perdition, but he will not kill people in this movie.
Road to Perdition is an underrated movie, I think.
Yes. So yeah, it's kind of like Mr. Grady in The Shining.
Yeah. Very much like Grady in The Shining.
You were the caretaker here, Mr. Grady. You've always been the caretaker. I should know. because I've always been here. We'll do The Shining in a few weeks, people.
Yeah.
Then it gets into the classic metaphor of the suburbs. Like there's this nice look, but right under it,
Yep.
it stinks. Right
under it.
Blue velvet.
Thanks.
So like Blue Velvet, Poltergeist, or the one I was thinking about in terms of Twilight Zone.
Mm-hmm.
The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where they all start thinking that something's wrong with all the neighbors. And at least in the Burbs, they're right about one of the neighbors.
Yes, they are. I mean, there's something wrong with the rest of the neighbors too, but they never really go into that.
Well, no, but and finally, Ricky's like, I have noticed a funky odor coming from there, right? Ray's like, you know what? I gotta go. Right? I'll tell you that. That's right. They hear the dog growl, and then Vince growls at the distant howling, and that's just like, I gotta go. No. So he goes in, he goes to bed, and he's in bed.
Is this when? No, this wasn't when they get the book.
Not yet.
Yeah.
No. But what happens is like what forces him inside actually is that it starts to rain. It rains really hard.
It starts to rain. It's pouring.
And so he's up in bed now, and he's still awake. Carol's in bed with them. They're talking.
Mm-hmm.
It's still raining really hard. It's one of those rains that like sometimes it rains really hard for like 5-10 minutes. And other times it's like all night.
Yeah.
It's that type of rain. And it's actually a good point to put it in the Midwest because like
it rains like that in the Midwest.
So anyway, excuse me, sorry. So anyway, so they're talking, and finally Carol needs to go to the bathroom. Yeah. She goes to the bathroom, and he stays up. He's watching TV, right? And then apparently he falls asleep because he wakes up, and then he starts having basically like a nightmare. He starts seeing everybody. Well, he's flipping through the TV.
Was the nightmare
before that?
Wait, was the nightmare now or was it later?
It's a little bit later.
Because the nightmare is late. Because now, while it's pouring, he looks out the window and he sees the neighbors. He sees the Klopeks digging in the backyard.
Well, even before that, isn't he flipping through the channels before he sees that, right? And they got The Exorcist.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They got the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, right? And then there's two movies that deal with satanic sacrifices from the 70s. One is called Race with the Devil. It is called Devil's Run. All right.
Mm-hmm. And these just happen to be all the movies that are on at the moment when he's flipping through the channels.
Both of these other two movies, like The Exorcist and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, they're well known.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The other ones, there's scenes of satanic sacrifice and murdering people. Both movies are rated PG because they were released in the 70s. Granted, The Exorcist and Texas Chainsaw Massacre also released in the 70s. Or rated R.
Yeah.
But you would think a movie that deals with sacrificing someone to Satan.
Yeah, you'd think that would be like an automatic R, no matter what decade it's in.
Not this one. Anyway, like you can tell like these movies when you see them, you simply do like it's not like a spoof or comedy or like no, it's played up anyway.
Yeah. So then he looks out the window, sees the Klopeks in their backyard digging.
Yeah. So then finally he gets up, and like they're doing like these hoods, and like
these hoods. They're digging in the pouring rain.
They're like
they got pickaxes and they're digging in the ground. It looks like they're digging graves.
Right. So, it's next morning, and you got the back outside, and I guess it's what Ricky, Art, Rumsfeld, and Ray. They're talking, and they talk like how he saw them digging in the backyard. Like he's got the new scoop. All right, so
yeah, so then this is when they realize that they haven't heard from Walter in a little bit, right?
Yeah, I was trying to think, what makes them think about going over there? Oh, that's what it was.
Dog.
No, there's a dog. Yes,
Yeah.
they're talking.
Walter's
and
dog.
Finally, right, and so you got Rumsfeld's wife sees the dog, and it's like, oh,
sees the dog in her yard,
like,
in Rumsfeld's
like,
yard.
Oh, no, Mr. Rumsfeld doesn't like it when you're in his yard.
The dog's name is Queenie, by the way.
Is it Queenie? Okay.
Yeah, the dog's name is Queenie, played by the dog named Darla.
So, like, they all decide, like, oh, you gotta bring him back, but the problem is, like, they're knocking on his door, and he doesn't answer.
And then the dog is dirty.
Yes, that's the other part.
The dog is dirty.
Right. It's a little white type of toy dog, and like,
so they're like, there's no way Walter would have let you get so dirty.
Yeah. So they're trying to, like, there's no answer at the door. They're looking through the window. They don't really see anything, and like they're trying to find a key. And then they can't find a key. And finally, Rumsfeld comes around, and he's got the pane of glass.
He opens the door from the inside, and like, how'd you get in? And he holds up a pane of glass with it. So he's got the suction cup.
Yes.
In the middle of the pane of glass. Where did he get the suction cup? He didn't go home to get it. He didn't have it with him when they walked up to the house. Did he pull it out of his ass?
He's like, they go in the house, and there's like a chair that's knocked over.
The TV's on.
No, this is interesting. Like, it does kind of look like a struggle.
Yeah.
There's a reason, but at the same time, you would think, even within all that, when you find out it's more benign than what it looks, that things could have been put in order.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So they're looking around, and
Bonnie goes into the kitchen. Everybody else is looking around the rest of the house. Ricky goes upstairs to look up there. And all of a sudden, Bonnie screams.
You're screaming!
In the kitchen. Everyone comes running to the kitchen, thinking that she found Walter's body. And she's like, oh, rat! And so Rumsfeld goes over there and looks at it. He's like, that's not a rat. That's a toupee. It's Walter's toupee, which he never leaves home without.
Yeah.
So, like, okay. That's odd. So they come to the conclusion that the Klopeks came over, kidnapped Walter, and took him back to their house and killed him.
That will become the theory. Yes.
Yeah.
And before like any of that, like, what is it that, because Ricky comes back down, and like there's one of the swinging doors in the kitchen. And he swings it open. Was it a plate? I forget who. Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
No, it's not that. He breaks a plate, but like, why is the plate in the hand? I'm trying to remember all this. But
it was like a plate of cookies or something that Ray was holding on to. And Ricky came walking in and hit it with the door and knocked it out of his hand. And it broke.
So that convinces Ray, like, all right, we gotta leave.
Yeah, we're breaking too much of his stuff.
He writes a note. It's like, we took Weenie. Mm-hmm. We have your toupee.
He's like, the reason why your window's broken is because we went into your house because we. And he's like, no. Like, he crosses that out. Next one crumples it up. Throws away.
That's the thing. He's like, he keeps trying to think, like, what's the most proper way to write this without sounding weird.
He ends up just saying, I have your dog. And then signs
it. Which is important because later that is kind of important.
Mm-hmm. So he writes, I have your dog, signs it, puts it in through the mail slot in the door, and then he puts the toupee through the mail slot.
Always see that little part spot. He's like, I'm just gonna shove his toupee through the mail slot. Like I can get like, well, again, he doesn't say I have your dog and your toupee.
Nope.
I just have your dog. If he said I have your dog and your toupee, he could have taken the toupee back with him.
Yeah. So yeah. So for the rest of the movie, Queenie is staying over at the Petersons' house.
The Petersons, that's right. Yes, because they have a dog also. Right. And so it's after all this that Carol's finally kind of like had enough of all these antics. So she keeps him inside the house. Or really, he's kind of saying, like, he kind of have like a little kind of like deck that's above the garage that goes into their master bedroom, right? And he's sitting out there, and Rumsfeld and Art, they come up and they're trying to get him out, and he's like, no. Carol comes out, it's like, he can't come out to play.
Yeah, he can't come out to play.
And they look like just two dejected 12-year-olds, like they kick their shoes into the driveway. They're like, come on. It's like, he needs to resemble the man that I married. Again, it's just like all these guys are like 12 years old.
Yep. But then Art shows Ray a book.
That's right. They go to the basement.
And they're reading through a book about Satanists and like Satan worship and human sacrifice.
Human sacrifice.
And they determine, or they theorize, that the Klopeks are Satanists, and they killed Walter to use him as a human sacrifice.
And Reyes doesn't want to hear it, so he puts his hands up to his ears.
Yep.
He's like, that's a sign. You're chanting.
Like, he starts just talking. He's like, not listening. But he's doing a sort of a certain cadence to it, and Art's like, you're chanting. That's a sign.
Satan is good. Satan is our pal.
That's how they get you.
But maybe he's right. He's right about some things.
Maybe
he's right about this.
Maybe.
I don't know.
This is the one thing that the whole Satanist thing is the one part of the whole theory that they don't confirm. Or, well, one of the parts about the theory that they don't confirm. They also, spoiler alert, didn't kill Walter. But
no. He just had some angina.
Yeah. So Ray takes the book home with him, and Carol's reading it in bed. And she's like, you really think that the neighbors are Satanists?
Yeah. Wait, is that before or after when Hans shoves stuff? No, this happens first, right? Because it's that.
Mhm.
So between that is when they're outside at night, right? And Ricky has his girlfriend over now, and he's giving her the scoop. Everybody on the block.
Yeah, everybody on the block.
It's like, that's Mr. That's Mr. Rumsfeld. He's like this military guy. That's Art. He thinks that
conspiracy theorist. That's right. He's the skeptic of the group. Or that's Mr. Peterson. He's the skeptic of the group.
I love the commentary.
Yeah.
Well done, Corey. Well done, Ricky. Right. He has the lawn. I love it. He's got the lawn chairs. Right. It's a movie. It's a TV show.
Yeah.
Kids gonna love Netflix in 30 years.
Yes.
And then, Rumsfeld, he's got an infrared scope to check out the basement, right? And then they're going in there, and then like finally it's like it gets more intense than usual, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a big wind blows like people, blows them kind of back a little bit.
No, this is when it's raining.
That's right.
Yeah, this is when it starts raining. It wasn't earlier. Yeah, so
afterwards, right? I think it's all done, and then all of a sudden the garage door opens.
Yeah,
and it's a detached garage, right?
Yeah, the garage door opens. This old beat up car drives out to the end of the driveway.
It just goes to the end of the driveway. That's it. And then Hans, who we saw earlier,
Hans gets out.
Right? He's the one who was out on the porch earlier, kind of looking around the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. Looks around. He goes, opens up the trunk, gets out
this big trash
bag, puts it in. What I like about this part is that it's a like a lot of times neighborhoods kind of have like they all have their standard trash cans. Like they have their own,
the old fashioned metal
trash cans, right? And he shoves it down, right? And he kind of pushes down a bit with his hands.
Then he picks up a hoe and he starts beating the top of it to try to cram it down into the trash can.
And then he finally gets the lid and he shoves it down. He tries just pushing it down as much as he can, right? And he gets quietly back in the car, reverses back to the garage. Yep. That's it. And obviously, this looks super weird.
Yeah. This is a big trash bag that was, big enough to fit a body in.
Yeah.
And so they're all like, we got to go look at it. We got to go look through
that's when the rain
see
comes.
What's in there. That's when the rain comes, and they're like, no, we don't. That would be way too suspicious if we just go start digging through his trash right now. We got to wait until first light.
Because looking through the trash at night when it's not raining is so much different than when it is raining.
Yeah, rain makes it weird.
It's so much different than. Yeah. Anyway, but as Ricky says, rain delay.
Yeah.
And they go back, and then he shows her the satanic walk-in, right?
And this is when it's pouring rain, and that's when he looks outside and sees them digging in the backyard.
He sees them, and then he has the nightmare.
Yeah, and then he has the nightmare,
and everybody is in this.
Mm-hmm. So his nightmare.
Walter's in it. Walter's dead in it.
Yeah, Walter's in the nightmare. Walter's dead, and Ray is tied up and laying down on a giant grill.
Like St. Lawrence.
Yeah.
He's about to be sacrificed.
Yeah. He's about to be sacrificed by the Klopeks.
Art's one of the ones that takes place in it. He's the old soda fountain guy that
he's Skip.
Family.
So we see Skip, the soda fountain guy, but it's really Art dressed up like Skip. And he even says that. He's like, I'm not Skip, I'm Art. It's me, Art. I'm just dressed like Skip.
Like, thanks. Anyway, so he wakes up to Mr. Rogers.
Yes, he wakes up to Mr. Rogers on TV.
Who Tom Hanks will play.
Yes.
In about 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
which he's not actually the main character in that movie. But and then they hear, then also you kind of hear the trash outside, right? And then I love the philosophical conversation the two trashmen are having between each other.
So the two trashmen are played by Dick Miller and Robert Picardo.
Yes.
Two people that you would not expect to have bit parts in a movie like this.
No.
But they were great as the garbage men.
Yes. Especially like Dick Miller just seems like a regular, like Robert Ricardo, he's trying to pass himself off as like an intellectual.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And so Dick Miller's like, getting kind of mad at Robert Ricardo because
like, what are you talking about?
Like, what are you talking about? Just help me. Just help out. But
then like Rumsfeld, he comes out, he's half shaved and he's in his bathrobe. And he's like,
wait, don't put the trash in there yet.
Right, because they haven't checked the trash yet.
Yeah.
They got to check it. And he jumps into the back of the
and he's digging through the trash.
Art begins to help, and then
they start dumping the trash bags out in the street, and Dick Miller's like, "What are you doing? Like, we can't do this." That. And then Robert Picardo picks up a trash bag, dumps it out. He's like, "What are you doing?" Robert Picardo's like, "You told me to help."
Once it's on the curb.
Yep. You told me to help, so I'm helping.
So apparently, Robert Picardo is definitely an expert in constitutional and civil law.
Yes. Yes.
Maybe he's taking night classes. I don't know.
Maybe.
And finally, Ray comes out. He's one who's doing it, and all of a sudden he kind of has to admit, like.
But when Ray comes out, then both Rumsfeld and Art are sitting in the back of the garbage truck.
Yeah. You gotta think they had a lot of fun doing this.
Yep.
They can tell.
So they're looking at like all they see is trash. They don't see any
all they see is trash.
They don't see any bodies, no body parts, anything like that.
It's all over.
So
and
they
Ray's
they
like,
conclude,
"Oh yeah, I saw them digging last night."
Yeah.
It's like, oh, they must have switched it and dug a hole for the bodies.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so they decided to move on, and finally, like Dick Miller's like, "Who's gonna clean this up?" It's like my tax dollar. Like my tax dollars pay your salary. You're the garbage man. You're gonna clean it up. So finally, that's enough, right? Though the wives are like, you know what, we gotta meet these people.
Yeah. So they sort of invite themselves over to their house. They all go up there, and when they
make brownies.
Yeah, they make brownies to take them over there. And when all of them get up on the front porch, Rumsfeld breaks through the porch. His foot breaks through just like Art did before.
He watched it. He should be aware.
Mm-hmm.
Did they? Was there already a hole there, or did they fix it and just?
No, the hole from Art was still there.
Okay.
The hole from Art was still there.
So they knock on the door. Well, we forgot the point where also they've been on this porch. It was one of the scenes where they've been on this porch. It was after the letter. They decided to put a note on the porch for the Klopcheks about knowing what they've done or something like that. As they fold it,
yeah,
and they reach out and they get it right because we missed the whole scene where they're in the backyard again, where the dog digs and finds the femur bone.
Yeah, the dog digs, finds the femur,
but they throw the note back over also.
Yep.
So, anyhow.
So yeah, they find the dog finds the femur, and Art's like, you know what this is? This is a femur. That's a human thigh bone.
I love the effect where they scream, right? And
Yeah.
the
The camera zooms in and out.
Zooms in and out. Yeah. Anyway, it's like and it's funny. Like the movie itself, like it's trying to take you out of it, where it's like, don't take it too seriously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like you're getting into these things like, oh no, human sacrifice.
Yeah, because I mean, this just
you're watching a black comedy.
This movie very easily could have been a completely different feel.
Oh yeah, totally.
Like it could have been a straight up horror movie.
Yeah, just like The Sandlot.
Mm-hmm.
A Beast.
Yep.
No. Right. No, but yeah, the zooming in and out, like and the music they play with it settles a little bit. You laugh at it.
Yep.
So, anyhow, Hans opens the door and they let him in, and they're talking. I love how he's like, finally, I was like, "Oh, what's your name?" He's like Hans. He's like, "Oh, a good Christian name."
Yeah.
So they're talking, and like you can tell Hans is like doesn't know what he's supposed to do. I was kind of surprised he even really lets them in the house, to be honest.
Yeah. Hey, he lets them all in. Maybe because they had brownies. Maybe he loves brownies.
He might love brownies. I mean, he loves sardines, apparently.
Yeah.
Right? Because like they bring brownies and he brings out pretzels and sardines.
Mm-hmm. And then Ruben Klopek joins them. Played by Brother Theodore.
Brother Theodore. He is not an Irish monk. He's a very grumpy guy, though.
Yeah. So they're all sitting down.
It's all very awkward. They're like, oh, you know, it's amazing we haven't, met each other. You've been here for a month. Like, we didn't even, see moving vans. And Brother Theodore's like, that's interesting. Considering they're outside for a whole day. Not a happy man.
Yeah. And they're offering everybody sardines, but nobody takes one except for Ray.
He gets persuaded because, he wants to see his wife again in a very particular way. So
yeah. So he agrees to eat a sardine and then eats it.
By the way,
just about gets sick.
They tell Art he's not invited in. By the way.
Oh yes.
So he and Dave are going to devise a plan to try to spy in on things as all this is happening.
Yeah. Yeah, the fat one's not invited in.
The fat one's not invited in.
So So Ray gets up and excuses himself to go vomit.
And yeah. And all of them, he and sometimes he's kind of looking at things, and Rumsfeld's looking over the house. He's looking at paintings, and they look at the picture frames like, oh, that's a nice looking lady. Is that your mother? It's like honestly, it
came with the frame.
With the frame. All of a sudden, they start hearing noises, right? In the basement.
Yeah,
it's noises. I thought you guys were alone.
Because they mentioned, and they're like, no, the doctor's down there.
And they're like, oh, it'd be great to have a doctor in the neighborhood. By the way, Henry Gibson. Oh, Henry Gibson's always excellent.
Yeah, he's excellent. Yeah. He's such a good actor.
We haven't really mentioned him yet. And it's funny because he finally comes up and he looks normal.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, we have visitors. He's got a tie. His hair's combed nicely.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
He looks like he could be a doctor.
Yes. He looks like Henry Gibson playing a doctor.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Dr. Werner Klopek.
So they oh yeah, and then sorry. Uncle Reuben confirms that like they're not Slavic. He's like, no.
Yeah, he's like, Klopek, is that Slavic? He's like, no.
I didn't realize it was such an offense to be Slavic.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Slavs out there. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. We never find out.
Yeah, we never find out what nationality they are.
What their ethnicity or nationality they are, right? So, Brother Theodore is German, but
yeah, but that
at the same time,
doesn't necessarily mean that his character is. But yeah,
Henry Gibson, like Henry Gibson, like so, they talk and that. Finally, it's getting later in the night, and Hart kind of sets off the alarm they have in the backyard.
Yeah, trying to climb over the fence.
And then, like you said, this is around the point where Ray is trying to excuse himself
Mm-hmm.
for eating the sardine. But, all their alarm basically sets free their Great Dane.
Yeah. And it chases Ray back to the rest of the group. And then, everybody leaves. They all go home. Well, they all go back to Ray and Carol's house. And Art is going on and on about, his theory about the Klopeks. And Rumsfeld is going on and on about his theory about the Klopeks. and finally Ray's like, and Carol's telling them that they're wrong, that they're just normal people that maybe just a little bit odd.
Pulls a toupee out of his
No.
pants.
First, Ray is like, I gotta side with Carol on this one. And then, Rumsfeld and Art are like, they start getting mad at Ray.
No, you're right, because he needs to appease her because he doesn't want her interfering.
So he's like, okay, so he's like, Carol, please excuse me, I gotta go talk to these guys for a minute. So he takes him down to the basement, and that's when he pulls the toupee out of his shorts.
His pants.
He reaches up his shorts because it was what was it? So Rumsfeld said something about he's he's whipped.
That's right, he did.
Art and Rumsfeld are talking about how Ray's whipped, and he's siding with his wife, and all this after all of this evidence has come to light. And he's like, why don't you just give Carol your balls? And that's when he starts reaching up his pant leg.
I'll just show you my ball. Nope.
That's when Ray starts reaching up his pant leg like he's gonna pull his balls off and take it back to Carol. But
I got an old man's toupee rubbing against my balls.
He pulls out the toupee, and they're like, "That's Walter's toupee. You kept it. You've had it in your pants all this time." And Ray's like, "No,
I found it between some magazines."
Yeah, he's like, "I put it
addressed to Walter."
Yeah, I put it through the mail slot in Walter's house, and now I just found it in the Klopek's house between some magazines that were addressed to Walter." And so then they're all three of them are 100% convinced that they killed Walter. The Klopeks killed Walter.
Yeah.
And so they devise a plan. Because during their conversation with the Klopeks, Dr. Klopek had mentioned that they were going out to the university the following day. And so they're like, okay, they're going to be gone tomorrow. Let's sneak into their house and find out what's going on.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. Because, Because they were talking about how they might have to move again. It's life of being a doctor. Which, like, anyway.
Yeah.
But they might go to the university move again. I mean, like, honestly, though, like, they lived there for like a month and they killed off the owners, just lived there for a month. That's pretty fucking insane.
Yeah. Yeah. So, the next day, Ray and Rumsfeld and Art meet up and they set their plan into motion.
Mm-hmm.
Their first obstacle is the alarm on the fence. So luckily,
everyone's favorite movie linesman.
Yeah. So luckily, there's a transformer right above the fence. And so Art, gets all of his, linesman gear on. Which, again, why would he have it if he wasn't a linesman?
Right. No.
If he wasn't a lineman. But, yeah, so he's going to go up there and he's going to cut the wire that connects to the alarm. So he climbs up, gets his clippers out, and he cuts the wire, but also shocks himself.
Yeah.
Launches himself off of the telephone pole, off of the power line. And, he falls through the roof of the shed.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, he falls through the roof of the shed. And, so Ray goes and opens up the door real quick on the shed. And Art comes stumbling out. His hard hat's half melted.
Yeah.
He's just been electrocuted. So, then Rumsfeld goes over and he, hits the wire at the top of the fence and no alarm goes off. So he's like, hey, at least he cut the right wire.
Gotta love the optimism. But hey, they have one of the mission objectives checked off.
Yes. But here's the best part about this whole little part of the scene, though. The camera pans back up and we see the roof of the shed, and there is an Art-shaped hole in the roof. Just like his silhouette. Like a cartoon.
Again, I don't think Dante misses anything like that. He's gonna just randomly shoot ceramic owl's head off.
Mm-hmm.
In that movie, you gotta be around that owl.
Yeah,
its head will be blown off.
Its head will be blown off. Yep. If you fall through the roof of a shed, then the hole that you fell through ends up looking exactly like your silhouette.
Like, that's always the thing about some of these like Roadrunner cartoons. Like, no, as they're running around the Southwest, just have the silhouette of where Roadrunner has not Roadrunner, where
Coyote
crashed through. Does Albuquerque have a giant statue of Bugs Bunny?
Maybe. He's always talking about Albuquerque.
Anyhow.
Should have hung a left at Albuquerque.
Should have hung a left at Albuquerque.
Yeah, so they climb over the fence. And they start, and so Rumsfeld, he's going to be the lookout. So he goes on top of his roof. He's got his binoculars. He's got his rifle.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Ricky has decided to invite a bunch of people over.
Not sure why he has the rifle, but
yeah. They're all expecting stuff to happen.
Yeah. So Ricky invites a bunch of people over, a bunch of his friends over, so that they can watch the show.
Yeah.
And Ray and Art, once Art kind of recovers a little bit from being electrocuted, they climb over the fence and they start digging in the backyard, in the Klopek's backyard.
And they can't find anything right away.
They can't find anything.
They gotta go to the basement.
Ray starts digging. Art's kind of just sitting back.
Well, he just got electrocuted. So eventually we get both of them digging. It's like the anyway, they can't find anything, so they gotta go into the basement.
So Art's complaining about the heat. He's like, we should go inside.
Yes.
It's probably cooler inside. So Ray's like, that's actually not a bad idea. We can go look in the basement, see if we can find anything down there. So they get to the door. It's locked. So Ray tries to get, he asks Art for a credit card. Art pulls out his wallet. All of his cards are melted.
Again, the movie pays attention to detail. It does. It's gonna. This movie's gonna be insane. You're gonna completely doubt every single character in this, but if they need a damn visa,
yep,
they're gonna have a damn visa.
Yep. And if a character just got electrocuted, yep, all of his credit cards are going to be melted.
And if they don't need the credit card or any of that, there's going to be a reason for them not having it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So then Ray pulls out his wallet and pulls out a card and sticks it in the door. And then
he didn't get electrocuted.
Because he didn't get electrocuted, so his cards are all intact. So he puts his card in the door and then it breaks in half.
Yeah.
And so he kind of just looks at it and drops it. Which, why would you just drop that? That's evidence that
you were there.
That you were there. And his great Art's like, oh, that was a crappy store anyway. Because that was back when, credit cards were typically based off of whatever store.
Yeah.
that you got it from.
Mm-hmm.
But so they so when you can't use the credit card to break in, then Ray there's some straw in the wall outside, so he just grabs a handful of that and uses it as padding while he breaks the window on the door, then reaches in and unlocks the door. So they get in the house, and it's great. This whole time, he's like, "Yeah." Art's like, "Yeah, let's go inside. There's probably some cold beer in the fridge. Let's go cool off."
Hey, that's always a good perk. Sometimes I watch it in the house is the free beer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't blame them.
Break into a house, there's the free beer. But
yeah, well, there's always that.
So they go inside, they go out in the basement, and they see this gigantic furnace.
Yeah.
And then, huge furnace.
You even get the sense then that Tom Hanks knows a lot about this furnace, even though he may not know everything about other helicopters. But you realize this was employee made, at very specific directions. Yeah.
And they notice that the furnace, goes a lot hotter than your typical household furnace.
Right. Well, that's the other thing. He's looking at the gauge, sees that.
The thermostat.
There's new ductwork.
Uh-huh.
So, no, Ray's very curious. He sees no, this should not be what's normal for a house in the suburbs.
Yeah. And then it's connected to this gigantic power source.
Yes.
And so they flip it on, and it starts, lighting up and starts making all these mechanical noises and exactly the same noises they've been hearing every night. And it sort of shows an exterior shot of the house and, lights up under the porch and all that, just like every night. So they know that this is what has been doing all that. So they find a dirt patch in the floor and start digging. Because they're like, okay, well, there's got to be a body buried under here. Walter's got to be down here.
Not sure why, but anyway, right with it.
Yeah. So they're digging. Or, again, Ray is digging. And, they're about to give up. And then he hits something metal.
Okay.
And he keeps on. So they're like, okay, that's it. There's something metal there. That's got to be where Walter is. And so they're, he's hitting the metal with the shovel. And meanwhile, Art calls Rumsfeld on the radio. He's like, hey, we found it. We found Walter. He's down here. Just as Walter's car, or a car, is driving down the street and pulls into Walter's driveway.
Yeah.
And then a woman gets out of the car, walks around, and Walter gets out of the car. And the woman's got a walker for him. And so Rumsfeld's like, Walter's alive, okay? And meanwhile, all of Ricky's friends they're about to leave because they don't want to be there for all this. It's boring for them. And he's like, no, it's okay, guys. I got the pizza dude coming. And they all get excited because the pizza dude's coming. So
that's funny.
Yeah. So Walter gets out of the car. The woman that's with him takes him into the house. And so Rumsfeld calls Art and he's trying to tell him Walter's alive. He's back at his house. But Ray keeps on digging, and as he's digging, he's throwing the mud up because they hit water down there. There's a little, there's water, so it's not just dirt that he's picking up, it's mud, and it's, slopping right on top of the radio. So they can't really hear it.
Yeah.
And so Art decides he's going to go outside and be a lookout.
Yes. There's still plenty to do.
Or no. It's not. No. So he's still digging, and and Ray hits a little bit harder with the shovel on the metal thing, and it ends up being the gas pipe. Ends up being the gas line.
Interesting.
So yeah,
that's not a fun way to go.
No. So he realizes he just hit the gas line, and he tells Art to run. And so Art goes running, and Ray is trying to climb out of the hole. We see Art run out of the front of the house, just as the Klopeks are coming up the street.
Yeah,
because they started driving up the street. Point. They saw.
That's a good point. Yes, yeah. Good. Yeah,
yeah. The Klopeks were driving up the street before, and they saw what was going on. So then they kind of backed up before anybody saw them. Which, if Rumsfeld was supposed to be the lookout, why didn't he see the Klopeks drive up in the first place?
Terrific question.
But yeah. So a few minutes later, the Klopeks come back down the street with the cops.
They say they got reinforcements this time.
They come back down the street with a cop car right behind them, and that's when Art comes running out of the house.
That's right.
Telling everybody, back up, we hit a gas line. And then as he's turning around, as he's getting out of the house, he turns around to see if Ray comes out behind him, and the house blows up with Ray inside.
Yeah.
And so they're all thinking Ray's dead and all of this. And then Ray comes stumbling out of the house
with bread.
Yeah. Like half of his face is all beat up, like he went 10 rounds with Mike Tyson. His face is all swollen and
you're right. No,
all this. And they find out that Walter is alive.
Always a good decision.
So then Ray gets pissed at Art and Rumsfeld for because he's like, I didn't find anything down there. All I found was the gas line. You set me on this wild goose chase. They're just normal people. The Klopeks aren't bad people at all. They're
right. No, we're not.
Walter's alive. They didn't kill him. And so, like, he's basically attacking Art.
Mm-hmm.
He had him in a chokehold, and
he's trying to
choke him out and
revitalize all that.
Mm-hmm. And so the cop comes over and goes to arrest Ray because we got 3 counts of breaking and entering. And Walter found a note saying that you kidnapped his dog.
I mean, we look at all that, like, yeah, you can understand maybe that they're also afraid of all these crazy ass white people.
Yeah. So, so now Ray is convinced that the Klopeks they're just odd people. They're not. There's nothing
wrong.
Nothing
just
wrong
weird.
with them. They're just odd.
They're Eastern European, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They're a just.
Yeah. But and he's like going off on Art about these people like Skip who just doing this mundane suburban life, and one day something happens. They just snap. That's us. We are the weird ones.
I mean, he's kind of right.
Mm-hmm. And so
especially if you watch. Go ahead.
So he kind of just, storms off, just climbs into the back of the ambulance and lays down. Right. He goes, because the gurney's outside. So he goes, the gurney that he was laying on. So he walks over, picks up the gurney, walks it over to the ambulance, puts it in there, and then climbs up and lays down on the gurney in the back of the ambulance. Meanwhile, Carol comes over, trying to comfort him a little bit. She's like, okay, tell you what, I'll find out what hospital they're taking you to, and then I'll follow you there. He's like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So he's laying there. Next thing we know, the ambulance, the back door to the ambulance shuts, and Dr. Klopek is back there with Ray.
Yes.
And he's talking to him. He's like, don't you? You know. I allowed you to find the femur, but I want my skull.
I want my skull.
You were in the basement. You had to have found my skull down there.
All of it.
You've seen
lying.
It all.
You fooled all them out there, but you didn't fool me.
Mm-hmm.
You don't fool the Jesus. You can fool those fucks at the league office.
Nobody fucks with the Jesus. It's been a few episodes since we had a Big Lebowski reference. But
yes, I would not have counted on the Burbs being the one where we broke the streak,
either.
but here we are.
Either. But yep. Yeah, so Dr. Klopek, basically confirms that he's like, you have my skull. I want my skull back. You were right. We did kill the previous owners of the house.
They wouldn't sell. We offered to buy it, but they wouldn't sell. So we killed them. We had to force their hand.
Mm-hmm.
That they did.
Yep. You looked in my furnace and you got my skull. And which he's like, I didn't look in it. I looked around it. I looked at it. I didn't look in it.
No. Why would I look at your furnace? Let me look around. I'll break into your house. I'm not going to look in your furnace. A man's furnace is his furnace.
Yeah. So Dr. Klopek pulls out a syringe and he's going to inject Ray with something. Meanwhile, Hans gets in the driver's seat of the ambulance and, pulls away like he's going to drive him to the hospital or something so that it doesn't look suspicious.
Or whatever he does. I don't know.
And Ray starts fighting back and ends up grabbing a hold of Hans.
That's right.
And so he's sort of swerving all over the street just as the pizza dude comes up in his van in the ambulance, sort of sideswipes the pizza van, and this van is full of pizzas. Like, there's no way that Ricky ordered all of these pizzas. So it must have been
no way.
He must have just been one of the stops for they must put an entire night's worth of pizza deliveries in this van.
Yeah, I would think
so. And so it tips over. All these pizzas come falling out, and so Ricky and all his friends are going and grabbing pizzas because the pizza dude's there. And then the ambulance swerves over and crashes right through the front door of Art's house.
Yeah.
And so, Ray gets out of the ambulance, runs over to the cops. He's like, "It's them. They are killers. They killed the previous owners. And so." But yeah. First of all, before Ray goes into the ambulance, and we found out one of the cops is like, "That's Dr. Klopek. He's a highly respected pathologist." So people know who this guy is, and he's been hiding his nocturnal activities from the world.
Yes, he has.
Because he's a highly respected pathologist. So then once Ray tells him what he just tried to do in the back of the ambulance, then, the Klopeks get arrested.
Right.
And then Art's wife comes home. And she sees an ambulance in their front door, like in the front of their house. And, she kind of starts to freak out. So Art's got to go and explain what happened. And so that's pretty much the end of the movie.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, we zoom back out and that's it.
Zoom back out.
It's like they were right, and and Ricky loves this block, and just like Winston, I love this town.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the end.
Yeah, so that's the Burbs.
It's a funny movie. You can see how it became a cult classic.
Yeah.
You can see why some may have been like, I don't know about this. It's endured for good reason.
Yeah. So, anything else you want to say about it?
I don't think so.
All right. So, in that case, if you want to follow us on social media, we are on Facebook and Instagram. That is Rob and Tony's Cinematic Adventure. The and is spelled out, A-N-D. It's not an ampersand like it is in the name of the podcast. But we are also on, Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. Is Rob and Tony's Cinematic Adventure. Then we are also on X or Twitter. That is R&T Cinematic. And if you want to check out our Letterboxd to see what some of the reviews for movies that we've done, and some we've done on the podcast, some we haven't done, some we will do, some we won't do. But check out what we think about different movies on Letterboxd. That is Cine Adventure or Cine Adventure, CINE Adventure. And, whatever app you're listening to us on, whatever your favorite podcast app is, if you're listening through the website, if you're whatever, go to your favorite podcast app. If you like what you're hearing, subscribe, give us a good review, a good rating. That's how we move up in the standings and the search and the recommendations so that we can reach more people and reach more ears. And yeah, so do all that and like us and follow us on social media. If you want to send us an email, our email address is robandtonycinematicadventure@gmail.com. Once again, the and is spelled out. It's not an ampersand like it is in the name of the podcast. But yeah, so what did you think about the Burbs? Let us know.
Is it a Joe Dante movie that you want us to do? Like Interspace.
Yeah.
Or have you seen this multiple times? And it's just, you dig it.
Which, by the way, Henry Gibson was also in Interspace.
I'm sure he was.
He was. But yeah, so what did you think? What did you think of the Burbs? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Was it your favorite Joe Dante movie? Is it your favorite Tom Hanks movie?
I will say for myself, it is one of my favorite Tom Hanks movies.
That's it. I don't love it as much as you do, but I don't hate it. It's one of those ones, it's enjoyable. It's funny. It's, but yeah, it's kind of just there for me.
I'm trying to think, like, what's my favorite Tom Hanks movie? It's a good question. Because we talk about this, like, it's I know some people might say Castaway now.
Mm-hmm.
For both of us, it's not Castaway.
Yeah. Yeah. We were just talking about that before we started recording this. But yeah, so let us know what you think. If you have recommendations of movies you want us to do for the podcast, we want to know what you want to hear. We want to be able to do movies that you want to hear us talk about.
As we talked about, like, Rob here, he saw it as a kid. He went some 20 years without seeing it. And then almost another 10 before seeing it again. Mm-hmm. Right? And like, is there a movie like that you have that you went through that and you discovered it again and you loved it?
Yeah.
Let us know.
So next episode, we had a couple that we had planned for the next couple of weeks, but we never really determined which one we're going to do next.
No, we did
we?
We normally determine this before we get an episode.
Yeah. So
which we did not do tonight. Of
those two movies, Tony, which one do you think we should do next?
I think we need to kind of, we're not having a formal fall thing, but I think I like the idea of a fallish sports movie. Mm-hmm. I think we can go with Rudy.
Rudy? That's what I was thinking too. So next time we're going to talk about Rudy, the Sean Astin classic about Notre Dame's football team.
Isn't it funny, like, Sean Astin, it just seems like he has like one movie a decade.
Yeah.
Where he can get associated with.
Yeah.
And really, we should say, like, even TV series, right? Because he had The Goonies, then Rudy, then Lord of the Rings. And it's another movie. He was in season 2 of Stranger Things.
Yes, Stranger Things.
Which would be his thing. And he's been other things, obviously, in between that. But
yeah, so
we'll get into all that because that's all Rudy.
Yeah. So join us next time for Rudy.